So, what are some of the timelines for applying for accommodations? Uh, as soon as you put the down payment for the college, it's time to start reaching out to the SAS office. Identify what paperwork you need to apply for SAS accommodations. Have your student make an appointment with their provider, whether that's a psychologist, psychiatrist, medical physician, and have them start advocating for themselves to fill out that paperwork with their provider. Then you'll typically submit that paperwork through the college portal. Some colleges still do paper copies. That's fine. Most do online portals at this time. Once that paperwork is uploaded in their portal, the accessibility team will evaluate the paperwork and request a meeting with the student. These are typically done virtually over the summer or during the first 2 weeks of classes. And the SAS office will do the intake with the student at that time to go over academic, housing, and other accommodations. I highly recommend you let them advocate for themselves during that meeting. If your student allows you, participate with them, but let them take the lead during those meetings. You also want to register for any pre-orientation programs that are offered through your school. At our school, it's called the Helix program. Every college may be different. Usually housing deadlines for housing accommodations are mid-June. I recommend as soon as you know you're going to that college, reach out to the housing office. The sooner the better. And usually the deadline for academic accommodations for most colleges is August 1st, but know that may vary from college to college. All right, some of the documentation that people are asking about are typically most colleges have forms, whether it be, we have an ADHD form, we have a medical diagnosis, and multiple other main forms. But any documentation from your provider that's typewritten on their business letterhead with their professional credentials and signature is fine. The key is with that documentation, you want to include the diagnosis of the individual, including any information of testing or assessment tools. Standard test scores like in a neuropsych or neuroeducational really helps us to know, like if they have a processing speed, it'll tell me what kind of accommodations to offer. If there's any other medical diagnoses, that is important to have. If they're on medications, anything like that, that will help us to manage. In addition, we want to know how their diagnosis impacts them academically, as well as socially, emotionally, and in housing. So what major life activities are limited, and clearly stating what the severity, frequency, and pervasiveness of the condition so that we can better understand the diagnosis and how we can provide relevant accommodations. Now let's take a look at a couple different types of accommodations. I'm going to review just a few today. This is nowhere near as an exhaustive list. We probably have 100 accommodations that I can pull from for my students. But I'm just going to kind of go over some of the more common ones when it comes to students who are neurodivergent. I do want you to know that there should never be a cookie cutter approach to disability services. Every student with a diagnosis is an individual and should be treated as an individual. How one student presents themselves on the autism spectrum with ASD1, it may be extremely different than another student who has the exact same diagnosis. So you want to make sure that the Disability Services Office really looks at your student as an individual, ask them questions about who they are, their interests, and making sure that they really look at them individually when they go over some of these accommodations. Common accommodations, especially with individuals with working memory, processing speed, we offer extra time on testing and testing in a distraction-reduced environment. Those are some of our most often used. With working memory, we may also offer formula sheets for math or a four-function calculator. Knowing that you can't have trouble memorizing some of those simple functions, you know how to do them, but it takes extra time. So if we can give you those formula sheets and they don't compromise the integrity of the course, if that's not part of the core course curriculum to memorize those equations, then we can absolutely offer that as an accommodation. Smart pens, ability to record lecture, priority registration is a big one, especially for individuals with processing speed. It can be very anxiety provoking. And when you already have trouble processing information quickly, These are things that we can offer. Breaks during testing, text-to-speech software, earplugs or headphones during testing to break out background noise. Reduced course load, being a part-time student is huge, and still get full credit. So taking 12 credits instead of 16 can be a big accommodation. Housing accommodations, I touched on some of these, but a couple more: no more than one roommate, dorm near dining or dorm centrally located, maybe quiet housing. And under the Fair Housing Act, students are also eligible for an emotional support animal. And I've seen this be a huge issue for students with a lot of anxiety and depression. Having that animal to care for helps them get out of bed and keep them motivated. So it's definitely something to consider.